this video, I want to explain why creating games, especially metaverses under a browser, is very difficult and why the cost of developing games is very expensive. Maybe you have seen many 3D marketplaces before and think to yourself, I can go buy a few models. There are Unreal Engine and Unity tutorials, so let's go build it. Probably your answer is, I don't know how to do it. But many people know C++ for Unreal Engine or C# for Unity, so why don't they go and build it? The answer is obvious. Usually people who know programming don't know much about 3D design. And if they do, they certainly won't start making a game because they know a person's lifetime is not enough to create all the necessary models for a game alone or with a very small team. Again, the question is, why don't they download or buy from ready-made marketplaces? Creating games is different. First of all, let me say that 3D files like the bricks of a building in the real world. But for creating virtual worlds, initially this technology was in the hands of a few of the biggest gaming companies. Yes, they were able to make a good amount of money from it, but gradually the technology became more accessible, at least in terms of gaming knowledge and design. It wasn't as hard as before, at least until they faced two big problems. One is that it takes a lot of time to create a 3D object, and the other is that ordinary objects have no application in the gaming industry. So you can't just go to a marketplace and buy two objects, because why? Take a look. This is a high poly object. It's 34 megabyte in size and is made up 65,000 faces. You can't build a game with this volume of face or a very high number of fonts. First, the volume goes so high that it's not sufficient. This volume of data to be stored for a game, suppose in this game there are 50,000 objects. Even if the game is not online, it's a lot for online. It's impossible at all. Now imagine our worry is not the volume, but the main problem is that it's hard for a computer to process all these faces. Imagine one of the objects we want to use in games is a 34 megabyte in size and made up of 65,000 faces. Just think about it for a moment. That volume of detail. It's like trying to fit an entire city with all its details into a cookie. Now, let's pretend for a moment we have solved the volume problem, say with magic. But the reality is the main problem is here. Processing all these faces is really hard for a computer. Now, why is this task hard for a computer? Well, when computers want to display a 3D object, they have to calculate each of these faces, meaning they have to calculate their position, lighting, shadow, and much more for every frame. When we are talking about tens of thousands of faces, this can quickly become a big problem, especially for games that require real-time rendering. This is where the concept of low poly and high poly come into play. In an ideal board, we want to use high poly because they have more details and look much more realistic. But the reality is that using heavy models in games not only require high processing power, but also affects the user experience of the game. One of the things they do in the game industry is making high poly model onto low poly ones. I do this job very quickly. Please watch. Hard, wasn't it? Yeah? Soon on Mondial 3D GitHub, we will publish a Blender plugin and a piece of code that does this job for you very, very quickly. We will also soon publish a way to earn money from making models locally. Stay with us.